I hate self-censorship, like a lot. If you don't know what self-censorship is, it's basically, as it is, just self-censoring yourself. For example, instead of saying killed, you say unalived. Instead of saying suicide, you say self-checkout. Instead of saying rape, you say grape. And these are just a few examples that I think I can say on YouTube. Hopefully this video doesn't get taken down. Now, my irritation with this is the fact that it takes away severity from the situation. And you might be thinking, well, these are only things I've heard online. These are only things that I've seen people in documentaries, shorts, or whatever do. The problem is people in real life, are actually using these words. And I've had an experience where I was talking to somebody and they literally used the word unalive or grape to describe something that happened or to start a discussion about something, as well as another story that I will tell later on in this video. But basically, I find it weird to constantly censor yourself and use words that are deemed less harsh. Like words that aren't as harsh to describe something horrible that has happened. A lot of people try and make the argument that, well, these topics, they're uncomfortable. Words like these make people uncomfortable. And the thing is, things like this are supposed to be uncomfortable. This should not be comfortable. This is not a comfortable topic to be discussing. It's not a comfortable thing for someone to go through. And it's especially irritating when people who have not gone through that start using that and saying that, well, I don't want to trigger the person who's gone through it. I can understand if a person has gone through something like that and the mention of it causes them to become triggered. I can understand that. But I think that's why trigger warnings are important. I think that's why it's important to warn the person beforehand, because no one's just gonna randomly mention uncomfortable topics. And if you do, trigger warning. Just say, are you comfortable with this conversation? And if you notice discomfort, then stop and talk to the person about how they feel. That's the only, not only, but it's one of the things that you can do if your argument is, well, I use self-censorship to not trigger other people. But the thing is, I find self-censorship to be extremely disrespectful to people who have gone through experiences like this, especially when it's used in casual conversation. I know there's a lot of horrible stuff that has happened in the world, such as murder and stuff like that. Can't say too much, I don't want to get demonetized. But to use words like unalive, pew pew to describe weapons, it's just so weird to me. It's uncomfortable. It pulls me out of what you're trying to say, because now it's like, what are you, I get the word. I understand the word because, I've heard it a bunch of times. I know what you're referring to when you're talking about stuff like that. But it's still an odd placement. And the fact that a lot of these words just sound childish. A lot of these words are they cater to be more more family friendly. A family friendlier way of saying something instead of saying what it actually is. And I find that extremely irritating. Another thing that is insane to me is the fact that when someone is referring to something like that, they use already existing words that are innocent, which also adds on to the fact that this is childlike. This is censoring yourself to appeal to a wider audience. And again, you mainly see this on platforms like TikTok and YouTube and all that. It's because these platforms are constantly taking down videos that mention it as it is. I'm gonna acknowledge it's not something that creators do because they want to do it or because they think it's fun or funny or whatever. Creators do this as a result of the algorithm. Because once the algorithm detects that you're saying something, or even just the mention of something sensitive can get your video taken down or demonetized, or even your whole channel deleted. So I don't blame content creators for that. What I do blame them for is the things that they decide to say in replacement of this sensitive topic. Because there's other words that you can use, other alternatives that you can use to get around not getting demonetized, instead of using words like grape, instead of using words like self-checkout, because these words again are just childish. These are sensitive topics. These are not supposed to be comfortable. These are not okay. So why are we treating it like it's an average thing? Especially when people talk about crimes. Like, the example that comes to my head is Ray William Johnson. I saw, his shorts, he does crime. He's very popular. And then he would describe stuff like, this individual was unalived with a pew-pew, to describe a crime someone committed. And I find that really weird, really uncomfortable, really disrespectful to the person who had to experience that crime. And, okay, you might be thinking, okay, this isn't a big deal. You're just being sensitive. Okay, let me use a more specific example. So, this is something that occurred while I was in class. I'm guessing we were going through an analysis of Romeo and Juliet, and every time the topic of the fact that Romeo and Juliet killed themselves, committed suicide, my teacher constantly self-censored themselves to say they unalived themselves. They unalived themselves, self-checkout, And I found that weird and decided to ask her after class, ma'am, why do you say unalive? Why do you describe this in an educational setting? Because there is a word for this, right? And the appropriate trigger warnings were provided in the beginning of the lesson, that stuff like that would be mentioned, and it is expected from Romeo and Juliet. The teacher explained that, well, some people get triggered by this. Some people become uncomfortable by this. But the thing is, this isn't supposed to be a comfortable topic. It's a very uncomfortable and severe thing to go through. And for me, at least, it was weird having to hear someone describe it like that. If you've gone through one of these things, if you've gone through something like this, and someone just decides to describe it like this, how would you feel? Honestly, how would you feel? If someone decided to describe something as severe as suicide, I will censor it, they self-checked out, or they unalived themselves. Why would you use this in a real life conversation or a school setting, for educational purpose, for documentation or whatever? Why would you use this language in a formal way to refer to stuff like this? As slang, I can get it, okay? I can get it. I'm not too irritated when some YouTuber uses it, like Ray William Johnson. When he uses it, I'm like, okay, yeah, it is expected. Tis expected. It is YouTube. But for documentaries, for something that's meant to be educational, I just tilt my head a lot. Because why the self-censorship? That's it. That's my only question. And if you're someone who's gone through something like this and you're just simply okay with it, you're just simply okay with someone describing events like this, it's fine. I'm not trying to say that, oh no, we should say it as it is. No, I'm saying that when it comes to situations where we're documenting something serious, I don't think we should put words that are unserious or childish when it comes to stating facts and definitions, because these topics are uncomfortable. They're not meant to be comfortable. And I guess that's my only thing with self-censorship. And, after I talked to the teacher about it, they were kind enough to stop saying it like that and just use the proper terms, Like, yeah. But yeah, if you use words like this in real life conversations, I just, like, I have one question for you. Why? Like, genuinely, why? But yeah, this was a rant. It wasn't like about anything, and I didn't do the intro either. So my apologies, and also my apologies for the fact that the dogs are going crazy outside. But yeah, I would like to hear your opinions on this. Like, comment down what you think. You disagree, agree, neutral. Like, just comment down your thoughts on how you feel about this. As well as, you side tangent. When it comes to videos on YouTube for educational purposes or describing a tragedy, I find it so weird when people are trying to capitalize on a crime, making like videos using these terms as a way to avoid getting demonetized instead of using more appropriate language. Because I've seen people censor their videos really well without having to use terms like this, as well as being able to communicate the severity of the situation. Such as, instead of saying that, instead of like, they censor the word that they say, and then they also put on screen to clarify what they mean, putting trigger warnings in the beginning, all that stuff. I think it's important, okay? But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, I didn't do the intro, but if you enjoyed this video, why not just like comment your thoughts? And while you're down there commenting your thoughts, leave a like. Like, come on, it's not that hard. And you know what? Subscribing doesn't hurt either. It really does not hurt. And for like, yeah, it just didn't hurt, okay? But yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.